babe. Welcome back to another episode of Supersonic Self-Love. I'm your host, Mary England, or Uncustomary, and thank you so much for following along. We are past a dozen episodes, and I have so many episodes planned for this year. It's very exciting, and if you like these videos, then please subscribe, like, comment, share. It really means a lot to me. And if you subscribe, then you can also get notifications and turn those on when new videos come out. And I don't just do Supersonic Self-Love, I also just published videos about stuff that I'm doing, like the No Pants subway ride and other fun things. So today we are going to be talking about boundaries. So boundaries are clearly like all the rage right now in terms of self-love and us kind of just realizing that, oh, we can do that. Before I dive in, let's pull the tarot or the affirmation cards. I'm using Louise Hay's deck, the Power Thought cards, and I link all of the affirmation decks in my blog posts that correspond with these. The first card that I drew is a little more idealistic about relationships and boundaries, which says, all my relationships are harmonious. Pretty idealistic, right? It's not necessarily something that always happens. It definitely probably doesn't always feel like that's the case. But the thing about setting boundaries, which we'll get into, is that it only creates more communication and healthier relationships. The next one that I drew is a lot of words. I don't know if you can see all this, but it says, I appreciate all that I do. I am good enough just as I am. I speak up for myself. I ask for what I want, and I claim my power. Yes, boundaries. You know, we are not taught how to create boundaries in school. We're not even taught really what they are. It's something that a lot of us are just learning about how to do, and really with boundaries, it takes a lot of unlearning to actually succeed in this process. When we don't set boundaries, which is probably what we have been doing for, maybe decades, it can leave you feeling tired, burnt out, emotionally drained, physically sick, so many things beyond just frustrated, you know? And the word boundary can kind of feel like really rigid and limiting, and it's just a word, you know, like it has the power that we give it. The same with like habits, you know, habits can be beautiful with like creating magical daily routines, but let's think about the good that can come from setting boundaries. More energy, higher self-esteem and confidence, more time for yourself, healthier relationships with yourself and others, and better communication skills. Boundaries also don't always have to be like this line in the sand that we draw and then we never cross ever again. Maybe some people in your life can cross certain lines, and maybe you make exceptions for certain people based on circumstances or how close they are to you. That's your choice. You don't have to explain your reasons to anyone. You are allowed to create unique boundaries that are different for every person in your life. You're also allowed to update and change your boundaries as you evolve and learn. Remember that saying no to something, anything, is basically saying yes to something else. So if we're saying no to spending time at an event because it feels like it's going to be really, anxiety producing or hectic or frustrating, we're saying yes to what we can do instead, which might be spending time with ourselves, practicing self-care, working on a hobby, getting extra money at work. What are you saying yes to instead of that no? It's not just a no, it's a yes to something else. And remember that boundaries can be not just for other people, but for yourself. And I'll give you examples of types of ways that we can do this for other people and ourselves in just a second. And boundaries also can be for anything. It has nothing to do with like how toxic or bad we label behaviors as being. We have been taught for so long, like in movies, that like being selfless is the best possible virtue in a person. Like think about like the the climax of movies where the person like realizes like, oh, well, if only I just give up everything and do this thing for the other person in this, huge big gesture way, and I give up everything and forget myself, then that's the character, that's the protagonist, that's who we want to be following. And it's like, we can give, we can be kind, and we can be altruistic and connect with other people without losing ourselves and not taking care of ourselves. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's actually a big act of self-kindness and self-love. It means that you are prioritizing yourself and your happiness. And it takes practice. It's uncomfortable at first. Like we've talked about being uncomfortable and sitting with discomfort, and how, back many episodes ago, we talked about, you know, loving and leaving things that are familiar, and how growth only happens outside of your comfort zone. So, like anything, it's going to be uncomfortable at first. A good way to like see, do you need to set a boundary, is actually paying attention to your body's like physiology, like how you're reacting. So like if we're talking about another person or a situation, like what is your body doing? Are you feeling tense? Are you feeling like your heart starts to race? Are you getting like sick to your stomach and nauseous? Are your palms sweaty? Is your chest feel tight, or like someone's sitting on it? Like, are you driving and like white knuckling the steering wheel? Like, your intuition and your body's reactions are right, like more than 80% of the time. And we have to trust that. The more that we're in tune with our body, the more that we can trust our intuition and actually use that as like a guiding post. So, what are some examples of creating boundaries with other people? Okay, unfollowing someone on social media, not going to a place or an event that doesn't feel good to you, saying no when you don't want to or are unable mentally or physically, saying yes to someone instead of saying yes to yourself. Like we talked about saying no, like a no is a yes to something else. So like, are you saying yes to someone when you actually should be like saying yes to yourself? Are you putting someone else first, basically? You can ask someone to not bring up a specific topic, whether it's triggering for you or that specific person just seems to always make you upset. Like maybe your parent can't stop talking about religion with you in a way that's upsetting, or money or something, and you're just like, you know what? We can have a relationship and I'm really excited about that, but this specific topic is off the table. Very easy. In theory. To not apologize for things you don't need to apologize for, like things you can't control, or just actually not needing to be sorry. I actually have a whole post about this that I'll link, and a tapping that you can do about stopping apologizing when you don't need to and replacing that apology with gratitude. It's a whole other post. Knowing your rights and asking for them, whether that's at a doctor's office or with any person of authority or just as a person, as a human. Not explaining why you're taking your lunch break or leaving a room. Coming up with like a list of things that you have loaned out and like when people need to return things, what that means. You know, like when I loan out books, I'll take off like if it's a hardback, I'll take off the sleeve. And then I have a note in my phone of everything that I've loaned out so I know who has what and for how long. Big things like consent and sex, that should be boundaries, right? And then just like your personal space. Like, what does that mean to you? What feels good to you? Like telling other people what that means. Okay, what about yourself? What's an example of setting a boundary with yourself that might feel foreign? Deleting something off your phone. Are you compulsively looking at something all the time? Are you opening Instagram like and spending 4 or 5 hours a day on Instagram? You could delete that from your phone. You could download one of those things like the trackers that tells you like when you like how often you're using it just to like get a feel on that. Or there's apps that will like shut it down after a certain amount of time or just like block it during time periods. You can create time frames or limits for things. So during this time of the day, I am turning off my phone, or during this time of the day, I am working on my daily practice. You can, we talked about daily magical routines and rituals. So like, and we just in episode 10 talked about mental health and mental health goals for rough mental health days. So what are your non-negotiables for self-care and mental health? Those are boundaries for yourself. What about not reading internet comments? That could be a boundary. What about not consuming bad news, especially when you're in a more delicate state, or just deciding when you are going to consume news, knowing that it could potentially be bad, and just like deciding when you're going to put yourself in that position so you're still informed, but you're not constantly consuming all of the crap that's going on. It can really be beneficial to come up with your own like manifesto or just a list of your own personal values and before you're like coming up with what boundaries you should be setting. And I have a worksheet that's going to like help walk you through that. But, boundaries, like everything else in our lives, should be aligning with who we are, who we want to be, and what we believe to feel true in our guts, our values. Remember this, I'm going to say it twice. You are not an asshole for creating boundaries. People are assholes for crossing them when they know they exist. You are not an asshole for creating boundaries. People are assholes for crossing them when they know they exist. You don't owe anyone anything. And we have all of this guilt, and that's going to be a whole other episode about guilt and releasing this feeling that we owe people things. But here are some tips. Communication is key. You want to ask for what you want. You want to be direct. You want to be firm. You want to be assertive and also positive. We don't want to just rag on people and tell them all the things we hate about them or something. If we convey what we want, how we want to be treated, and just the fact that this is a fact. I don't like this thing. I would like this to be the thing instead. Thank you. Good night. If we do that, then it can, one, give the other person an opportunity to change And also, so often we just decide like, that's a toxic behavior, that's a toxic person, I'm leaving, I'm canceling them, whatever. And sometimes it's necessary to leave a person or a situation or a group of people or whatever. But what about asking for what you want first and then giving them the opportunity to treat you the way that you want to be treated? People aren't mind readers, you know? So also just think about the fact that like if you don't tell someone what's wrong and then you leave them and ghost them without an explanation, they're probably going to get more angry and just keep doing that thing because they don't even know that it's bothersome. You also need to be prepared for the fact that you might and probably are going to have to ask for what you want and what you need more than one time. People aren't always good at change. We have these ingrained behaviors that it's hard to get out of, so we might need to be reminded more than once. It's also up to you how many times you are willing or interested in communicating the same thing that you've already communicated and how many chances you're willing to give. It helps with anything to start small and build your confidence, like to see that creating a boundary to ask for something that you want or how you want to be treated isn't actually going to be the end of the world and push everyone away from you. So what is something that you can start small with that's going to be part of your homework with yourself and someone else? The word no is powerful and it's your friend. I know that a lot of us have trouble saying it. We want to be people pleasers. We want to be yes people. I actually have a list that I'm going to share with you of 25 ways to say the word no without actually saying the word no. So how to convey that you don't want to do something without actually saying no. Nice ways of asking for what you want without actually saying the word. You know, 2019, last year, was a big year for me in setting boundaries, and I ended up losing a lot of people because the reality also is that even when you ask for what you want over and over again, sometimes people find it like it's an attack. They feel defensive, they aren't ready to change, they don't want to change, they feel like you're just dissing them or whatever, and they get angry at you. That's not about you. It sucks to lose someone, and you're always allowed to mourn a loss of someone that you love, even if you have to get rid of them out of toxicity. It's okay to mourn someone, even if you choose to remove them from your life in whatever way. Remember that when you are leveling up with boundaries, that it's also a two-way street. You need to not only honor what other people are asking you to do, but you need to be prepared for someone to ask you to do something that like you might not have been aware that you were doing, that might have been causing someone discomfort. And just use that opportunity to not be defensive, to be grateful that someone was willing and comfortable enough to come to you with this feeling that they had and give you a chance to treat them the way they want to be treated and become aware of your behavior, how you're affecting other people, and just have that new perspective. Taking things to the next level can also be looking like asking your friends without them prompting you of how they want to be treated, asking them how do you want to be treated? What are your boundaries? What are you not saying? Ask them, like, how can I best support you? One of my biggest moments with boundaries in the last year, I had a lot of different things and a lot of different things in different ways, some of which I wish I would have done differently. But one of the biggest moments for me was I I do these moon gatherings. And not only did I decide to go down from doing them twice a month, which was very stressful and a lot of work, to only once a month, which gives me now the opportunity to plan and make them really, really cool and more intense and put a lot more energy, resources, everything into them. But I also added different people and let go of certain people. And a couple months ago, we were down and doing like our group talk and the journaling towards the end of the night. And a new person in my life and in the group asked about a magic shop, if there were any in Baltimore. They're new to all of this and they were just asking a question. And I clarified if they were asking about like witchy magic or like card trick magic. And they actually wanted to know about both. So I told them about my favorite metaphysical shops, and then I told them that I didn't really know about a magic shop with like cards and stuff in our area, but I do know of an amazing magician who does really, really interesting, wonderful shows named David London. And I told him how to find David London's site and like, he always has a newsletter and to just sign up for that and he'll let you know when he's around, all the tickets you can buy and how you can, enjoy his gifts and skills and shows. And that person's response was, that sounds awesome. Can you tell me every time he's performing? And like even a couple months before that, I might have said, yeah, I'll try. Or I would have found some kind of compromise, which it felt like a really big ask. They weren't trying to be, malicious or anything. They were just excited and didn't realize that that was a weird thing to ask or a lot to ask. But I just looked at them and I said, no, here's the site. You do it. And I was so proud of myself because I didn't have to say it and then backpedal. I didn't have to think of why this was a boundary for me. I was just like, I'm not doing that extra thing. That's not my job. I do this. You can do that. Here's the information. You do it. And just immediately said no, period. And that was it. And a bunch of people laughed because it was kind of silly, but that's how simple it can be. And that person didn't get mad at me. They're still in my life. And that's just an example of how quick and easy it can be to set a boundary once you realize what you want. So for your homework this week, there is going to be a separate video for tapping on setting boundaries and releasing the guilt and the uncomfortability around it. So I want you to do that. I want you to download the worksheet and work through that. Check out the list of ways to say no without actually saying no. Set one boundary with yourself and set one boundary with someone else. Next week, I will be back with episode 14 about body image and body positivity. If you would like more resources about self-love and personal development like this, I really would love to have you in the Uncustomary Babes membership group. You can join monthly or yearly, and there are 5 new resources every week. Just like this. This is free material, so imagine what you're getting when you log in. I would love to send you a membership card and have you as a part of our group. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share with your friends, comment, subscribe. I really appreciate it. And let me know how the homework goes for you. I hope that you have a wonderful week. Remember that you can set boundaries, and you don't need to explain why. Thanks.